Hello, welcome back to Fertility Village Live. It's Erin here. Welcome, everybody. I am joined tonight by our friend, Lindsay, Clara. Lindsay is on our board of directors at Oasis as our director of support and care. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on, Erin.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And who's this visitor we have behind you?
I was going to say, you will probably see my cat Ellie pop in and out of the screen. She's very much a camera showgirl. So I apologize if that was distracting everyone.
Welcome, Ellie, to the show. It's good to have you too. Usually we see her tail walking along the Zoom calls for our board meetings. So funny. Well, tonight we are hosting an episode and we're bringing in Lindsay because Lindsay is a social worker, really educated around how we deal with our emotions, our feelings, our boundaries when it comes to infertility. She's a warrior herself, has been through the journey. So before we dive into some questions around how do we deal with and navigate through the holiday season with infertility. Lindsay, why don't you give us a little bit of information about you, a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Erin. So as Erin mentioned, I am a fertility warrior as well. So I come with years of my own navigating my own fertility journey throughout the holidays with family members, with partners, with myself in that complex relationship. And then with also the fertility clinic too, undergoing IVF, experiencing loss, hope, grief, joy, all of the emotions that come along with a fertility journey. And I also then have a background in social work. I have my master's of social work and I am a registered social worker. And that's where I really saw those two worlds colliding. Is I really needed support during that time, and then completing my journey and getting out of my journey, kind of concluding for me and for my partner and I really wanted to be a support for folks throughout their journey, a support that I needed throughout my own journey, and that's what led me here.
Yes, and we are so glad you're here. Lindsay came to us when Oasis was just a baby little organization with really not a lot going on yet, and she's been like a foundational piece of building this organization and just leading us in a direction that is so focused on whole person care, on mental and emotional strength and help and support throughout the fertility journey. So this is very exciting. This is our second last episode of 2025 on Fertility Village Live, and we've almost hit every single Wednesday this whole year. This is our second last episode. We thought it was a really good time to kind of, just dig into the holiday season. It's coming up. We're a couple weeks away from Christmas, and just everybody's feeling the stress, the emotions of, we don't have a baby again this year. Maybe it's multiple years. Maybe it's the first year you've been trying and you're just like, oh, I thought I would be pregnant this Christmas, or I thought I would have the baby finally. And they still don't. And it's Christmas for some reason. It's just such a hard time to navigate. And so we want to get into this, and we want to talk about why and how do we put boundaries up and how do we deal with the hard emotional things. So we're going to dig in a little bit. So let's start with a question. Maybe you could answer this. Like, why do you think the holidays feel so emotionally charged for people and couples, especially navigating infertility?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it does. It come this holiday season, come the end of the year. A lot of folks, myself included, really notice this intensity of emotional experiences, especially around infertility. Often because I find for folks that it brings together cultural expectations. That can be one part of it. It can bring family rituals. It can bring around, identity, around family identity. And it can also be that reminder of timeline. Yeah. So kind of that year concluding kind of reflection period. And that can bring a lot of distress for us, understandably, for folks who are navigating their infertility journey. I kind of like to look at it like two different obstacles that we're navigating throughout the holiday season. One being like that societal, that family pressure. So, how society thinks a person should be during the holidays. Or again, like historical family traditions, maybe cultural traditions that are going on during this time, which can create a lot of pressure on ourselves as we navigate infertility around different ways that we should show up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other piece that I also say is sometimes there's this personal or individual pressure. So this pressure, again, kind of might be one that we feel internally. So maybe it's that reminder of time, maybe that end of year reflection, that thought of what and where you wanted to be during this holiday season, as a reminder of that invisible timeline that I think that we all hope for when we're going through our fertility journey. So I think it's kind of a combination of all those things, and that can be a really just like challenging time for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like depending on your history or your background or, how you grew up, Christmas could, or like maybe you've just lost somebody, like there's already reasons why Christmas is emotionally charged. And so then to add in the infertility, difficult. And I think too, like Christmas is so focused on kids and Santa. And like you just picture like, oh, I just can't wait till I can do Christmas with my kids. It feels like especially if you've dreamt of being a parent or dreamt of being a mom, you really imagine like when the kids are going to enjoy Christmas. And so I think it's that reminder too, because it is so focused on kids. You just get sick of seeing like, families and the Santa and the, all the things. I think maybe that's also a contributing factor because it is very focused on the kids and the magic.
Definitely. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. A lot of, especially like the Christmas holiday, is centered around kids, right? And creating that magic. So definitely that reminder too. And I kind of think about that being this thing that we all naturally do called the comparison effect, right? And it's especially when it comes to our own hopes and dreams, our own wishes too. We have this natural automatic tendency to compare our lives to families, to timelines with people around us, especially when those comparisons highlight something that we so deeply want. In the holidays, it's kind of right in your face all the time. Yeah,
it's so easy to compare. What are some of the most common triggers that people face this time of the year?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that definitely being one of them for sure, right? The holidays, whatever holiday you celebrate during this time, if it's centered around kids and or if your family has a lot of kids in them, can definitely understandably be a trigger for sure. Social events, because there's this worry or this pressure sometimes, I think, for folks around the anticipation of questions, the anticipation of what is to come at social events, whether it's from Aunt Sally asking all these questions or, from a coworker, and maybe their intent is not to trigger you, I'm sure, because that would be cruel and unusual. But nevertheless, these simple questions that society deems is appropriate, which I disagree with. But, it can really be hard to navigate those things. And then other things like gifts exchanges can be hard as well. And then even I want to add in that social media pressure, which is something that we now are navigating, I think, in this, digital age, is navigating the pressures that we see, not only from, again, like in-person events, but also social media, these curated, idealized moments of other families that we're seeing, and having to navigate that comparison effect, having to check in with ourselves too, because it's, again, like so in front of us.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think sometimes like it's so hard to admit how you're actually feeling, when you're triggered by something. And there's just such like a focus on like being grateful and giving and joy. So like, what would you say to somebody who's like expected to be happy and joyful and whatever throughout the holiday season? How do they validate their own feelings when everybody's expecting joy, but you're not like feeling joyful or happy? You're feeling like sad and depressed and, negative.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? And that right there, what you're talking about is that like societal pressure, that is that expectation around the holidays. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. It is challenging, right? It's challenging to force or feel like you have to force that joy for the above, for what we just talked about, for all of those different triggers, for what we're navigating internally with that societal pressure. The saying that I usually like to use is the more you resist, the more it will persist. So
I love
I'll say, yeah. So I'll say, yeah, the more that you resist, the more it will persist, especially when it comes to emotions. So I'll kind of explain that a little bit. What I mean by that is I often hear this narrative, especially as a social worker that supports folks who are navigating infertility, also going through it myself during this challenging time of the year, is that if we lean too much into like grief, or we lean too much into sadness and don't maybe show that joy, or give joy some space, maybe when it's not always helpful, is that it's the fear that if we lean too much into grief, if we lean too much into sadness, that the emotion will get bigger. And I understand on some level, right, how like that can make sense for sure, right?
Yeah.
And like why that could make sense. Yeah, and it's painful. It's not enjoyable. I won't sugarcoat it. It's not enjoyable to feel grief. It's not enjoyable to feel sadness. And if we continue to do something that we don't enjoy or we don't like, or engaging with an emotion that feels really painful, like why would we want to continue feeling it? So totally understand it from that level. But when it comes to emotions, it's not the case. Emotions have action tendencies. So when we think about sadness, we think about, there's something missing. That's like the action tendency. When we think about anger, something has to change. When we think about grief, it wants to be acknowledged. And if we don't give ourselves the space to lean into it or sit with emotions, it often creates more anxiety. I kind of using an analogy, it's like shoving it into a little drawer, tucking her away for a rainy day, maybe it won't come out. But what happens is, the drawer only gets bigger and bigger until it can't close anymore. And then it come out in, maybe physical symptoms like headaches, anxiety, like we said, fast-paced breathing, anxiety attacks, increased heart rate, things like that. Because if we resist it, it will persist. So if we don't give it the time and space that it deserves, then it will come out in different ways and it will still be there. So going into this holiday season, sorry, go for it.
No, that's okay. I was just like saying that's so good. Yeah.
No.
It's so relevant. Like you're speaking to me because I'm like, I hate talking about my feelings or feeling my feelings. And I always explain it as like this box. I just keep putting them in, and then eventually the box just explodes and I have like a meltdown or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard. It's hard with feelings. I have like a sticker on my water bottle that says feel your feelings so that I remember to feel them, because I really don't. I think they're gross.
Yeah. Better to keep a safe distance, it feels like, right, in the moment.
Yeah. But that's such a good, like, I love that line. Like, yeah, because it will persist. So it's good to like give space. But I love how you said, don't just give space for like the grief and acknowledge the grief, and give space for the, the hard things, give space for joy too, like the positive emotions that help us through this situation. Or like, it's okay to still be happy on Christmas, even though we're sad about, you can hold space for both. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And leaning into joy one day, doesn't take away the grief, and leaning one day doesn't mean that you can't experience joy again either, or that the next day or the next hour even.
Yeah. What signs can tell someone that they're approaching this, like maybe the boxes or the drawers getting too full. I mean, obviously there's going to be physical, you said it, there's going to be physical reactions or a headache or whatever. So like, can you go back and just chat a little bit more about what, like if someone's listening and they're like, oh, maybe I'm getting close to that breaking point, and they're like noticing, yeah, like, I mean, like I said, I just have usually a outburst of tears, and that's how it all comes out. But like, what other things can people like watch for?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because sometimes when it does explode, when the drawer is overflowing, right, we might not connect the dots, and that's okay, because sometimes it doesn't happen. But it's a good thing to be, bless you, it's a good thing to be mindful of too, because then we can start to support ourselves, and just lean on different strategies, lean on different people. So yeah, like you said, it can come out very much in like a meltdown, crying, could feel like a million mental tasks. So folks who are navigating infertility often have a big mental load. They are navigating appointments, they're navigating medications, they are navigating like work and accommodating work, they're navigating schedules, pickup times with medications, like all these things, right? Especially if you're like in it. Oh yeah, so many things on top of the holiday mental load, which comes with a lot in itself. So there's a lot of mental pieces and a lot of mental load I find during this time too. So something to be mindful of is how many tabs do you have open on your mental load, and how overwhelmed do you feel? Is it possible to delegate, right? Like if the fertility mental load is not possible to delegate because you're the one who has to go to the appointments, you're the one who has to kind of book these things, how can we maybe split up the mental load of the holiday season, or lean on support during the holiday season, because that's one of them for sure. I'm kind of mixed with this one, but retreating or withdrawing socially. And the reason why I say I'm mixed is because I think there's societal pressures and societal worries, right, that we are navigating, and boundaries can be placed during this time, and that's completely okay. I think for folks that are watching, just maybe be mindful if you're pulling away from many social gatherings, or maybe you typically would talk to a partner if you have one, or you typically would talk to a friend about like the mental load pieces, or about what you're navigating, and maybe you aren't this season. So kind of being mindful of if you're connecting with folks you usually do, or maybe you're pulling away a bit more. Kind of going with the last piece around like feeling powerless, emotionally flooded. So keeping an eye on, maybe having difficulty with not knowing outcomes, or if plans change. Maybe, something that you used to be that you used to be able to navigate pretty swimmingly is harder now during this period. And then also be mindful of how you are feeling in terms of anticipatory or anticipatory fear, anticipatory anxiety, kind of these like what if scenarios, worst case scenario pieces. Because that can definitely pop up, and they do pop up for everyone. So that's a brain's natural to keep you safe and well. Just notice if it's popping up so frequently where maybe it then stops you from doing something, or it's created more anxiety during this holiday season.
Yeah, that's really good. So you've touched on boundaries a little bit, but let's dig into boundaries a little bit more, because I feel like boundaries are so important. And you touched on such a good point. Like, if you're withdrawing too much socially, you're not like even going to the places where you feel safe. Yeah. That could be a sign that maybe you're like nearing depression, or like really struggling with your mental health. So let's talk about, what does a healthy boundary look like during the holidays? You've touched on it, but let's dig in a little more. And then you can maybe go the other way to like the unhealthy boundaries.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, boundaries, love them.
You're so good at boundaries. I've always said that about you. Like, you're so good at boundaries. I just have always really respected it. Like, yeah, the way that
Oh,
you.
I appreciate that because it is a work in progress. It is a work that we are always, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, like we always are navigating that relationship with boundaries and holding a boundary versus like guilt, or a boundary versus like, those like what if scenarios, like what if I say no? And I think that especially comes up during this period, right? We have that internal dialogue where, we don't want to let anyone down. We want to be present maybe during a certain function, or we want, on maybe some level to go to this function, right? And there are other pieces in your journey at this time right now that impact the ability to attend maybe something it's in its entirety, or maybe attend something because it's a trigger, which is very understandable during this time period, because like we talked about before, this season comes with a lot of different pressures, a lot of different triggers, and kind of going back to the main question of boundaries is really looking at like what is a boundary. And a boundary is how am I going to behave? Like, what am I going to do? It's not about what others are going to do. So So sometimes I hear, from folks, understandably, setting a boundary of like, you can't ask me about my journey at this time. And that is understandable and great that you're communicating that piece to whoever you want to share that with. At the same time, we can't control other people.
Right.
So I would say a boundary in that case, again, is more, what are you going to do if you feel like a boundary is crossed, not how someone is going to be. So in that case, example, setting a boundary of, hey, I really would appreciate if you don't ask me about my fertility journey during the holiday party, because that's not something I want to discuss during that time. If someone does, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. I'm going to leave. I'm going to take space. I'm going to set a moment aside for myself. So it's a healthy boundary during the holiday is informing folks what you are going to do, what you are going to do in that scenario, or in a scenario.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's saying like, I'm going to stand over here, and if you come too close to me, I might push you away, or I might that's a physical boundary, but like I think it can work like emotionally as well, right?
Yeah.
That's really good. Can you share some simple language or scripts that people can use when asked intrusive questions like, when are you having kids? Like, it's so common to be like, oh, you guys, are you trying yet? Or, I hear it all the time in our support groups, like, people ask these questions, and it's so hard to navigate when it's your family and I used to dread some of those events, like, especially with like distant family, because do they really care? They're just being nosy. Like, do they really, And so I think it's give us some language we can use, some scripts that people can kind of take away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I still, even when anyone asks around me about anyone's body or they're trying to conceive journey or their ideas for their family, it has become so normalized in society to ask such personal questions around family and conception. And I completely feel that, and I most definitely felt that when I was going through my fertility journey too, around kind of anticipating those questions to come up, and how I'm going to handle it. And that's actually often what I chat about with folks who I support as a social worker too, is kind of having these 3 accessible responses for if somebody asks like when you're going to have kids, or somebody asks about
excuse me, sorry.
Okay. If somebody asks about your fertility journey, because again, that's kind of what we can control. So I like to kind of break it up, into 3 different responses that you have on hand. So one being like no information. So if someone asks you like, oh, when are you going to have kids? One being like, uh,
None of your business.
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. What about you? And kind of turning it on them. So it closes the door right away. So there's no questions to be asked, no follow-ups. And it really just changes the conversation towards them. So that's kind of like the first one that folks can have accessible to them. So being like, nope, what about you? No information shared, no follow-up questions, just changing the narrative really fast.
Yeah.
The second one kind of being, a little bit of information, a little bit of maybe some honesty around the fertility journey, but then again, maybe not opening the door so much. So that could look like something like, it's not as easy as we anticipated. What about you? Or, yes, we are hoping to maybe sometime in the future. What about you? So it's a little bit throwing in around, a fertility journey, maybe throwing in that like there is the hope to have kiddos in the future, but again, framing that conversation. I kind of will do disclaimer that I find that some folks that maybe are nosy, like you mentioned, like the distant family may follow up with a question around that, being like, oh, what do you mean? Or, oh, what do you mean it's not so easy? So keep in mind that I find that one kind of, again, opens the door a little bit more for questions around
all the unsolicited advice where they're like, oh, well, have you tried this or have you tried that? Or you should just go on holidays. That's how everybody gets pregnant in our family. Like
Yep. Exactly. So keep that one in mind. And kind of know that if you feel comfortable to share it. And again, each one you can kind of pick and choose who the person is, how much, you feel comfortable sharing with them, who they are to you, etc. And then the last one that I kind of like to offer is one that is like just 100% blunt and honest around, like, if it were me being like, yeah, I had 5 miscarriages and, it's hard. And I think I like to throw that one in because they asked the question, so they can have an answer.
Yeah.
And like they're asking, an invasive question and a question that warrants a response. And I think we often shy away from that response because of, societal expectations. We don't want to cause discomfort to anyone. And at the same time, they're asking a very personal question.
Yeah.
You can give an honest answer.
Totally. I know for me, like, depending on where I was on my journey, like I was like, like all 3 of those answers at different times. And it was more towards the end of the journey where I would just be like, don't ask that question. Or, when it felt like really hard or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Sorry, we have a little bit of a lag here in the internet. I don't know if it's the snowstorm right now or what, but I think it's going to catch up. You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And I completely agree with you. And depending on who the person is, I think we're back. Are we back?
No, we're good.
Okay. Yeah. I was just going to say, I agree with you. I think depending on who the person is, where you are in your journey, what you feel comfortable in saying, because some days, like, I'm just going to be blunt with you. Or like you said, that's not a question you should really ask people. Do you know why? And let me tell you a play-by-play of why.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. And it's wherever your comfort is at the time. And if you have zero capacity for answering that question, like, I think that's when you're like, I'm going to opt out of this event. I just don't want to. I know for me, I used to struggle with like hanging around my cousins and they were all younger than me and all having babies before me. And I was like, this is really hard. I just like, like I want to be in that stage so badly, and just listening to them like talk about their kids and the baby stages and are they feeding and they're up all night and complaining sometimes, it's just like, it's really hard. Like there's a season where I like didn't, love to be around my family because I was like sad, it just made me, it was really hard. So I think like giving yourself grace to, like take a year off if you need to, because it just feels too hard. You don't have to please everybody when you're going through something so difficult like this, right? Yeah. on that note, like, how do you think people can decide what events to attend and like what events to decline without feeling like ashamed? I know, I mean, I definitely felt that, but eventually I just started like being like, I don't care anymore. Everybody kind of knew at that point what I was going through. So especially my close families, I was like, oh yeah, she's opting out. That's just fair.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's completely fair, right? And I think, sorry, my computer is frozen. 1 second.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, I think we're back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that's complete. Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. There's a little bit of a lag, but we'll just roll with it. Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. And even to ask yourself around, attending events or when to decline and how to navigate that internal pressure, right, that we talked about a little bit earlier, of that guilt, that guilt to attend, or you want to please your family and you want to make sure everyone's okay, and you kind of prioritize their well-being and their feelings. And I would challenge folks and ask the question, like, where do you fall on that list?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fall on prioritizing your feelings during the holidays and prioritizing your wellness? Because oftentimes when we look at scenarios like that around, like, do I attend, do I decline, we often put our family or maybe our friends or whoever the event is for ahead of what we need.
Yeah.
And then I would also kind of offer to, like, weighing out almost like a pros and cons. So weighing out the pain of going versus the pain and guilt of not going. So is the pain of going going to cause you more distress versus the pain and guilt of not going, or vice versa? And kind of looking into that for you.
Yeah. That's so good. And just kind of like weighing the pros and cons, or having an exit plan, like, so let's talk about coping strategies. Like, let's talk about planning. Like, we've talked about emotions, we've talked about boundaries. So let's talk about making a plan. Like, how do we help our community understand or plan for, like, what, yeah, let's talk about that. So if someone needs a break during a gathering, like, what can that realistically look like?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. With creating the exit strategy, and the reason why, even before, when we chatted about having these, like, kind of 3 responses in your back pocket, or doing these things ahead of time preemptively, is actually because what it does for us is it actually doesn't dysregulate us as much when if we decide to go. When we have these, like, rehearsed or role played or curated responses in our back pocket or an exit plan, what happens is when we actually go to an event, if we decide to go, if something comes up, that is triggering, or the question pops up of, like, when you're going to have kids, what happens internally for our brain is that our amygdala doesn't flare up, because it doesn't perceive it as a threat, because it's not as distressing, because we role played it out, because we have these curated responses. So it doesn't, the amygdala, which is fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, doesn't perceive it as an emotional strain or an emotional threat, because it knows, okay, like, we planned for this, like, we know what we're going to say. It doesn't take me off guard. So I don't need to go into my stress response. I don't need to go into my fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that's why having these things actually ahead of time can be really helpful if you choose to go into the space, because even for moments, and I'm sure we can all relate, there's been that question, or there's been a trigger, right, and you, like, freeze, or you can't think and you don't know what to do, or maybe you just, like, get the heck out of there, which totally understandable response, because your nervous system is dysregulated. Your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is turned on, because that is sending alarm bells to your brain that is a threat. And it's an emotional threat, right? So having these plans ahead of time, such as, like, the responses, talking to your partner if you have one around an exit strategy, communicating with maybe some folks, like if it's a family gathering, communicating with them ahead of time around this is what my capacity is at this stage of my journey, at this stage, during the holidays. And I think also if it's something that connects with you, giving yourself some flexibility, because it doesn't have to be like attend or not attend. It could be, I'm going to go for this portion. I'm going to go for the dinner portion of the gathering. I'm going to skip out on the present portion because that seems too triggering, or that is too triggering for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to be, attend or not attend. It can also be like, it can also be flexible in that, like, oh, I'll come over and, eat dinner, or I'll come over and do coffee and tea and cake or whatever it is at the end of the night. But I'm going to skip the other portion of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Me and my partner used to have like a little like code word, like when I like, it's like the pull the ear, like we're out of here. Like if I,
blink 3 times. Yeah.
Blink 3 times. We're going to get out of here if, ABC happens, or even just A happens. Like we're just going to, choose to, exit early or whatever. I think having the plan going into it is super important. I think that's really key, yeah, that's really good. Almost like a little mini plan that you can make for those moments when you feel really overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just going to add to, having quick tools maybe at your access. So kind of when we talked about like coping strategies too, right? Like having maybe quick tools that are accessible for you. So whether that is like doing breath work, or whether that's, dropping into the present, or, kind of cognitive diffusion strategies, which is like really naming like, okay, anxiety is showing up for me and there's tension in my chest and that's what I'm feeling right now. Or I notice that I cannot think right now because I am dysregulated and I am stressed, and that is okay. So having some really quick tools in your toolbox. And I love what you said too about the communication with your partner around, even like having a conversation beforehand about what each of your capacity is heading into the event. So what is your capacity? What answer of the 3 are we saying today collectively, because this is where our capacity is? And, are we doing exit strategy 1, or maybe exit strategy 3 where I have a little bit more capacity? So it's really important to have those conversations too, if you have a partner ahead of time, even, or a family member if it's a family gathering, and just if you feel safe to chat with them about that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's really good. Sorry, I think we were frozen for a minute. I'm back. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's also good. Also good. And I love like all those little like tidbits of information just to help people through those hard times, through those emotional situations. Or I love like having like a, I can go outside and breathe in some cold air, or splash water on my face, or drink a cold beverage. That's one that helps me. Like those things that kind of bring your body back to blue, right? From red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sour candies are a very well used one too for folks, like having like sour candies in their bag, because again, it really takes you out of the space into your senses. So if you're a sour candy person, or maybe you're not, maybe that's better, but that can also be helpful.
Really good. I didn't know that one. That's fun. Okay, well, we're all going to Rocky Mountain Chocolate to get chocolate covered sour keys now, because it's like, we're just getting festive with the treats, and it's also like helping us re-regulate ourselves during these hard times. It's perfect. I love that. So good. Okay, let's talk about like protecting your peace. So the daily sort of grounding and calming practices that people can do throughout December. Let's talk about some things that people can do even every single day, just to kind of get through the holidays, to focus on your emotions and regulate yourself.
Yeah.
Sour keys.
Sour keys. Oh
Love
yeah,
it.
I love a good sensory stimulant for sure. Sour keys, ice, like on your cheeks, on your wrist, in your mouth,
Mhm.
even. Those can be lifesavers at, and if you're in a quick pinch, like a party. I wanted to, when we talk about like having strategies or like daily rituals too, I want to kind of go back to what we talked about the emotion piece, right? And like
Mhm.
giving our emotions are the space that it needs to process. um so kind of like we discussed before, like the more you resist, the more it will persist with emotions. And
Yes.
the more that you are able to, because it's also can be a challenge too, the more that you're able to meet your emotion or that feeling with patience, kindness, and curiosity, that distress or cry for help will lessen. So when you notice an emotion that's surfacing, grief, maybe sadness, give yourself some compassion because it's hard. This is a hard season.
Yeah.
And it is understandable that those feelings would be surfacing at this time, given all that you're navigating, giving all that you're going through, all that you're trying. So, really meeting that emotion with patience, kindness, and curiosity around what they're sharing with you, around sitting with what they're showing you or showing you how they're feeling. Can and just giving it some space. That's kind of what I would say. Being the first one, I think often, especially when during the holiday season, we're in such a hustle and a bustle, we're again, we kind of tend to push these things to the side or like, oh, I'm busy right now and it's uncomfortable, which is understandable. Or, we don't have the space in that moment. Maybe we're at work,
Yeah.
maybe we're at the holiday party. Just gently going back to it later on when you can, whether that's the same night, maybe the next day, just saying, hey, I noticed sadness showed up, ABCD, and giving it that space and saying, I hear you, I hear you're there, I know why you're here, I know that you want something, I know that we want something,
Yeah.
and that's understandable that you would be here during this time. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of my spiel on emotions.
I love it. I'm gonna do a shameless plug for the journal because you were
Yeah.
such a huge part of that project that you can get one on our website. We have a code for a free journal. If you go back a few episodes to the journal episode when we launched it, I believe it's there, or attend a support group, you'll get a free copy of our Oasis journal. And inside that journal, we very strategically place the emotions wheel. If you like, you can Google that and find it anywhere. But the emotions wheel has been such a good tool for me personally, just to kind of get to the bottom of like, why am I feeling what I'm actually feeling? And how is it presenting itself right now in this moment? Like, and so I would say get a copy of that journal, use it to journal, use it to feel the feelings. There's so many really good tools in there to help you regulate, to help you get through the hardest times of the journey. So, if you don't have a copy of the journal yet, you need to get one. So, you go to our website or attend a support group. Our support groups are coming up in a couple weeks. We're actually doing it the week of Christmas this year. It's always the fourth Monday of the month. So, it's the 22nd or the third, sorry. 22nd is our next support group. So sign up. You can sign up on our website. But that support group is going to be key, I think, in getting you through the holidays. You can go virtual. There's, I think, 10 in-person locations you can go to. So go check those out because just getting together with other people who really get it, I think, over the holidays too, and knowing that you're not alone. Like you are not alone. You are going through this. There are hundreds of other couples, individuals, solo moms that want to be, or solo women that want to become moms going through this journey. You're not alone. And so just know that and know that, there's other people that you can connect with out there, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that is thank you for sharing that, Erin. And I so echo that sentiment is like building connection and building community, it can be so supportive and is so supportive during this time, to feel like folks who get it, who understand you. I know for me, like that was such a big support during my fertility journey, just connecting with folks that understood like how I felt about the holidays coming up. Like, yeah, sure, it's exciting and it's also terrible.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, let's talk a bit about that support system. So we have our partner. Hopefully they're a supportive person in our life. We might have a few other key people who are like our go-to people that know about the journey, that know what we're going through. But a lot of people don't know how to ask for support. So how can they express their needs to friends and family without feeling like a burden? I remember feeling like that, like, oh, nobody wants to talk to me because all I talk about is infertility, like in certain scenarios, you know? So maybe you've got some advice for this.
Yeah. And yeah, we hold so much when it comes to our fertility journey. We worry about, our future. We worry about, our partner, if we have one. We worry about our impacts of friends and family too. Like, what's going on when I'm sharing it with them, am I sharing it too much? Like, am I not sharing with them? And what does that mean? So we're holding so much. So I think that adds to that mental load piece too, of like, we are also navigating, how to share in relationships, or how to again navigate relationships while in the fertility journey there, and that's tricky in itself. And during during the holiday season, and reaching out for support can feel really challenging, because people often fear that they're like bringing down the mood, or maybe they're oversharing too much, right? Especially when it's the holiday season, and maybe there's family expectations that you attend, or that you are there for a certain period of time. What I like to say to that is, needing support is a normal neurobiological response to distress.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Huge.
It is not, it's not a character flaw that you need help. It is not something that makes you weak. I think that narrative still floats out around there sometimes. No, it is, reaching out for support is a normal response to distress. We need connection as humans. We need to feel supported. We are not individualized creatures. We need to lean on people. Especially during something so distressing as infertility. So what I usually like to share around, reaching out to folks that you feel comfortable with, right? So kind of look at, who are your safe people around the event? Like, who are the people that will be there that are your safe people and that you can connect with, and really using like clear, gentle language and grounded in your values. So, using I statements that are grounded in your values. So something like, I care about being present with you. The season of life, this season of holiday with infertility is emotionally really heavy for me. And I might just take quieter plans this year, or I want to show up for you. I want to show up for the family and be there, but I might need breaks throughout it. So, really using those empathetic, value-based phrases, really using I statements like, I would love to be there, and I'm not sure I have capacity at this time this year. Or again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think I can attend this portion of the night. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really good. Okay, let's pivot and talk to those who might want to care for us. They might not be listening, but you might be tuning in because you have somebody going through infertility. You want to know how to help them navigate. So for anybody who wants to help but doesn't know how, what can they understand about infertility during the holidays? And and then we'll move on to, what does a supportive partner look like?
Yeah. And if you are tuning in because you do have a loved one that's navigating infertility, like, yay, thank you for being here, because you as a support system are so integral to their wellness, to their wellness, to, again, just feeling supported during that journey. While, I think while infertility can be so challenging, you don't have to do it alone. And I think that's where that community piece comes into, that like Oasis can offer, that our loved ones can offer. You really don't have to be alone, and it can feel so lonely. So if you are someone that's tuning in because you have a loved one that's going through infertility, like, thank you for being here. And what I would share, both as someone who is a practitioner, as a therapist, but also someone who has navigated my own journey, and what I would have loved to have shared during my own season, would be that during this time can be especially hard because infertility involves multiple forms of loss. So loss of control, loss of identity, loss of imagined future, could be failed cycles. There's a lot of loss intertwined within this. So as much as you're able to support them in the choice around attending and the choice around what they're able to be present at during the holidays, not only the holidays, but in every, step of the year, but especially around now. So almost, offering, hey, I know that you're navigating this, or, I know that you're navigating infertility, please don't feel any pressure to attend the whole thing or a portion of it. Like, I'm here to support you, and really almost like giving them that verbal confirmation that it's okay to adapt plans as needed. I also feel I also would share that that emotional overload is really common, and not to take it personal, right? So if someone pulls back from maybe attending an event, or someone changes from a yes to a no, or a no to a yes, to not, as much as you can, internalize it, because it's not about you. It's not them rejecting you. It's really them protecting themselves, and kind of what we chatted about before around them doing an incredible job of being introspective and noticing their needs and allowing them to respond to that. And that is a beautiful thing. So really, this is a really hard emotional season, and to not, as much as you can, take it personally, because those are two separate things.
Not personal.
No.
Yeah. That's really good. And so, in speaking about a companion or a partner, what would make a really supportive partner during this time? What's, examples of helpful versus unhelpful responses?
Yeah. And like unhelpful versus helpful responses, I'm kind of assuming around like the fertility period or around the holiday period.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think definitely, again, having a supportive person, or having a partner or a companion, or again, like a safe family member, can also be helpful in these responses. So really, walking with someone during this really difficult, challenging phase of the year, and this part of their journey. So really being attuned, maybe noticing if there's some shifts, maybe noticing if they have more anxiety later in the year, really creating a space that's non-judgmental. That also, I will add in there, don't offer any solicited advice. So really, again, be unbiased, non-judgmental. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say, like, with like your partner, I know like everybody navigates grief and like these things really differently. And so like being a supportive partner, sometimes that can feel like one is super optimistic and is like, we just got to go. Everybody's going. It's Christmas. We got to do it. The other one's like, I don't have space for it. And so how do you recommend that couples navigate this when they're on different pages of the grief journey, or different pages of how they feel like they should deal with this? Like, is there any advice in those situations?
Yeah, you are literally describing my partner and I, because when we were navigating our grief, I feel like at different stages, we were very much in different places and spaces mentally. One being more like optimistic, chatting with family members, sharing more, and then the opposite partner being, you know, more reserved, more hesitant, more guarded, not sharing as much. So I definitely can relate to that, because it's true. Even though, you know, you may be like navigating a similar experience, you can experience grief so differently, or you can hold emotions so differently, and it can come out so differently. So definitely hear that, because that was our experience too.
Yeah.
I
think
really
naming grief is so important. Oh, sorry.
no.
Yeah, like calling grief what it is and being like, oh, you're angry today. Like grief, there's all those, like there's the cycle or the journey, we like to call the journey of grief. You're angry today, or you're feeling sad, or you're in denial, like this, you know, like naming it and being like, oh, this isn't, you're not angry at me. This is grief showing up right now because this is really hard. I think like there's so much power in like naming it and saying like that's what this is, because then all of a sudden there's like grace and there's like empathy and like that support to your person to be like, oh, okay, I don't actually, I'm not upset that you're mad, because you're not, it's not, you're not mad at me, you're like, it's grief, you know, it's just really yeah.
That is so perfect, because then it also, with that too, right? It separates the emotion from you. Whereas, you know, maybe if that was happening, be like, oh, Lindsay is so mad at my partner. Like, why is she so mad at me? Right? Like you, again, it like really personalizes it. Whereas when you separate it to the emotion, it doesn't hold as much, it doesn't hold resentment, right? Like where it could to that person, or it takes away that pressure. I think sometimes, especially around the holiday season, there can be unconsciously that pressure, right, from a partner to be like, okay, well, can you try to like attend this, or like maybe we can, you know, act a little different, right? Like there's also that pressure too. So by naming it and separating it from the person really gives it its own breath, gives it its own life, and also to acknowledge, this is what's going on for me, and not adding to that pressure of showing up in a certain way. So really allowing your partner to grieve how they need to grieve, and really affirm them in that. Just say, you know, I'm here. You don't have to explain anything, or, you know, if that makes sense, that, you know, grief is showing up in this way because it's a really challenging time, or we are navigating this. And also, again, checking in around capacity, I always find, is a really lovely one. You know, I want to share this with you today. Do you have capacity? Or, you know, I noticed that my capacity is at a 0 today, so I'm going to lean on you in these ways. And again, really going at it together, and being and as much as you can communicate that.
Yeah. I feel like we went totally off script, but like, and we're getting near to the end of the episode, but I love this like piece about the couples in like, you know, you're on the same team, like through this time of the year. Like Christmas is your holiday to spend together, and like at the end of the day, and you're going through this journey together. And so, yeah, like give each other lots of grace and space to feel the feelings and talk about the things. But I love that what you just said before about like asking if somebody has capacity. Like I think that that's so important in a relationship, to make sure like you don't just dump on them, or like, you know, I think that's really, really good. Are we still there? Okay, we're good. Well, we're gonna wrap this episode because we're getting close to the hour. I can't believe it went so fast. But before we do, two things. One, I have one more question, and then I want to know where people can find you and connect with you and potentially see you. So, but first of all, my last question is, what message do you want to leave our community with as they move into this season?
Yeah, I always feel so loaded with this question, because I just care. Yeah, I just care so much for folks, and want them to know that you're not alone in these really mixed emotions, right? Of like holding this duality of grief and joy, of hope and loss, of new year timeline, and sadness and happiness. Like you are not alone in holding that duality, and it doesn't have to look, you know, picture perfect or season perfect, because this is a really challenging period. And if someone let me actually rephrase. This is a really challenging period. And if a friend was navigating or just got diagnosed with cancer, and you had heard that, would you go up to them and say, hey, I know you're navigating cancer. I know you got a cancer diagnosis. Can you just be joyful for this season? Is that how you would respond, Erin?
No, never.
No,
Yeah.
never.
And we shouldn't do that to ourselves.
And I was just going to say, for sure, we shouldn't do it to ourselves. And infertility bears the same emotional weight and emotional distress as a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So the same compassion that we would give, that imaginary friend who got diagnosed with cancer, that grace to express all the emotions that they need during this period is the same grace that you should offer yourself, because it's the same type of emotional challenge. It's the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's the same with any grief too. Like, would you go to your friend who like just lost their partner, who maybe passed away, and said, it's okay, you'll find another partner, like you should just be happy at Christmas? Like, it's just, I think when you put it into the context of like, this is a loss, there's so much grief attached to the fertility journey, like makes it so much easier to have like space for people and what they're feeling, and for yourself, That's so good, Lindsay. Thank you. And okay, tell us where we can find you. People can connect with you. People can go see you for mental health support. So where do we find Lindsay?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me at Fortitude Wellness Journey. You can find me on Psychology Today. My name is Lindsay Clara. You can find me there, or again, Fortitude Wellness Journey website. You can reach out to me by email, I believe my telephone's on there, whatever feels safe and comfortable to you, and we can see if we're a good match.
Yeah. And it's just Lindsay at oasisfsn.com as well, because she does have an email link to the organization if you do want to reach out. So yeah, thank you so much. This has been such a lovely episode. I love spending time with you always, and just also many words of wisdom and amazing things to say. So thank you for all your support and everything you do for our community. I'll just say next week is our season wrap. So it's going to be Fertility Village Wrapped, just like, your Spotify Wrapped. They're going to do a recap of the season. We're going to talk about next season, because there's going to be some changes coming up on Fertility Village Live next year. We're going to, after next week being our season wrap, we're going to break for 2 or 3 weeks over the Christmas holidays, because there's a couple Wednesdays in a row that are Christmas Day, New Year's Day. So we're going to break until January after next week, but come back next week. We'll have Kaylee and Sarah doing our Fertility Village Wrapped. And I will see y'all next year. I'll be hosting again. And thanks for tuning in tonight, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome to